But my question concerns the Royal Geographic Society.
Royal Geographical.
The Royal Geographical Society, yes, of which I know you both have both direct and indirect associations. In the 19th century, it seemed to be a bit of a pit of vipers. They didn't seem to show a lot of leadership in sorting out these terrible fights between Burton and Speke and others. Do you have any comments on the
well, the original headquarters were at 1 Savile Row. That's the original headquarters, not where they are in Kensington Gore now. And I don't think that's a fair comment about the Royal Geographical Society, because it was 1838 society. It became rather inward-looking, red chairs and cigar smokes and something, and an elitist kind of society. But they were the only real society that sponsored this kind of thing. And when I mean sponsored, I mean in the real word, not just providing the money. The Vipers aren't internal. The Vipers were basically the explorers. I mean, the frustrated explorers who really wanted to find something and to put their name in history. And they wanted to be recognized, and they wanted to be famous. And most of this fighting, including Burton and Speke, I mean, they were good buddies before. And of course, they loathed each other in the end. And they not only did they distrust each other, and in the end probably dislike each other, but if you read all the explorations to the Nile or any other explorations, the most amazing thing is that that what they claim is so different. So I did the journey when I did the thing, really just to see who was right and who was wrong. And it is extraordinary when you go do the journey. It is amazing what you see, because what we know now about geography, they didn't know. So their achievement was unbelievable, 15,000 times anything that we could have done. But really, I think it was the people outside who were craving and needed sponsorship and were hungry to get their name and to win the great geographical prize, which is the source of the Nile. You should say something.
Yeah, well, I would just say that, I mean, on the whole, it was very difficult for both the Royal Geographical Society and the explorers. The main bugbear that they all had was that if they gave their discoveries straight away and published in the Society's journal, which they were expected to do, they lost the possibility of making a fortune from their own book. And it was very, very hard on them. That some method had to be made for sorting that out. Speke completely refused to take any part in this. And as a result of that, he was dropped by the person who had sponsored him. Well, no, this was. I mean, obviously his publisher had sponsored him, but Sir Roderick Murchison had been his real hero. He was the president of the society and had got behind Speke and done everything for him. But as soon as he realised that Speke wasn't playing ball, wasn't producing the things, and wasn't giving him sole rights and the maps and everything else that he'd made, it was a very different story. And he pulled the plug on him. And Speke ended rather disgraced before his accident by going off and appealing to the French Emperor to fund him, which at a time when France and Britain were not on the best of terms was to say the least, tactless. So the viperage came both ways. I mean, I do think that a man like Clements Markham, who was a very posh, grand secretary, who was really horrible to Stanley. He discovered Stanley's secret, that he was a workhouse boy, and that he was illegitimate. And he sort of held it over him. It was pretty nasty. I've read the letters they both exchanged. And so the aspect of snobbery within the society was very acute. This was a club of gents who liked their evenings to go well. And I think some of the explorers felt that they were risking their lives so that gentlemen in Savile Row could come in after their day's work and enjoy themselves in the evening with a talk. And meanwhile, there was Livingstone in Central Africa.
Can I just say just one thing about it? I mean, there's a very good question, because really the competition was fierce. It was really fierce among these explorers and the achievers. I mean, interesting that you talked about Speke's suicide, for example. And I know Peter Speke is still alive.
No, not suicide.
No, I know. Talking about Speke's suicide. But what you don't know, I know that. But what I'm saying is that he was the man who had come back after the 1858 trip and discovering, quotes, the source of the Nile, and got instant fame. But then gradually, the controversy grew and people were against him. And in the 2 years before the debate in Bath, it was not suicide. it was not suicide, but his state of mind must have been in an incredible position. Here's a man who used to shooting. I mean, you wouldn't go across a low-style wall and put the butt of your gun on the ground. I mean, it's not the way you do it. I mean, I think he was, and he wasn't looking forward to the debate with Burton, who was a great debater. He was just in a terrible state because the whole world had unfairly, very unfairly, turned against him.
I think, though, that, I mean, one can look. He had been writing 10 hours before the accident. He'd been writing a letter, a very sort of sober and sane letter, to the mother of a female, to the father of a female explorer who'd rather sadly been killed by Tuaregs. And it was an incredibly sort of laid-back letter, which, if you know, I mean, maybe he was careless because he was thinking of the talk on the following day. And he knew that he was being stitched up. And he knew that Murchison was not looking after him. And his publisher wrote, saying, you know, that Speke was going to be got at not just by Murchison but by Livingstone, both of whom had, you know, an axe to grind. So it would have been strange if he'd been completely happy about what was going to happen the following day. But another letter he wrote 4 days earlier was to members of his old regiment, saying that it was a matter of honour that he would defend himself against Burton's allegations. And this is quite a long letter, and it does look to me awfully like a man who is very determined to put his best foot forward. Whatever else one thinks of Speke, he was exceptionally brave. I mean, you know, I can't really, it's the end of the day, and I won't give any examples, but he was a very, very brave individual, and I don't think that apart from inattention, he wasn't used, by the way, the Speke family say he wasn't used to shotguns. He had always shot with a rifle. And in fact, it was a shotgun what killed him.
Thank you very much, Tim Jeal, Christopher Ondaatje.